Hello and welcome to MBS Academy and Real Lives Interviews. Today we're talking to Karen Rowe, who's going to share her life experiences, especially around finances and how that has affected her well-being and what she's currently doing about her finances, especially in this current climate. Hi Karen, how are you?
Hello Jackie, nice to see you again. I'm fine, thank you, and kind of embracing what's going on right now in the world.
Excellent. Would you like to tell me a little bit about yourself?
In general, I've been a clinical hypnotherapist and Reiki master, done lots of those things, coaching and the therapists such as reflexology, EFT, the whole thing. Once you get into something, you kind of get addicted to all the other aspects of energy healing and what have you.
Yeah.
So done that for over 20 years, and now I'm currently working with a company called Carrot Bars, which, funnily enough, is to do with gold, as in relation with my finances.
Yes.
But I'll get to that in a few moments. Yes,
because the therapies that you mentioned, I think it's quite important to have a wide range of abilities so that you can actually understand people's needs and meet their needs.
Yeah.
And from a wellness point of view, it's quite important to be able to recognise people's individual needs.
Well, I got involved with Reiki in the late 90s, more for my own sanity, to be honest, and then it opened up a whole new world to me. And I just kept reading and reading different books, and then obviously wanted to share that with other people that had been through a similar situation as I had, because I was coming out of a divorce at the time, and it helped me so much. So obviously wanted to share that, but like you say, everybody's different, and Reiki alone isn't suitable for everybody else. So that's when I looked down the path of clinical hypnotherapy and EFT, because it gave me more options to help people.
Yeah. I've known you for a while now, and we had a little chat before this interview, and you mentioned about how the finance and your financial state in life has affected your health and your well-being. Maybe you'd like to share some of that.
I'm very good at putting a brave face on, and people see this person that's happy and jolly all the time, and most of the time I feel it as well, but I didn't realise, even though I'd done a lot of work on myself, that there was a lot of pain I was suppressing, and fear more than anything, and that fear was linked to finances and feeling that I couldn't support myself financially. Right. And this went on for a few years, and I think the final crunch came was when I was in France, because I'm now back in the UK, but when I was in France, just trying to support myself financially, doing my therapy work. And I think a lot of therapists have this block where they can't earn a lot of money. They feel like they need to give so much of themselves away free of charge.
Yeah.
They find it difficult to attract the money to support them, and I think that was a major block for me at that time. And eventually it did lead to me being diagnosed with breast cancer for the second time, and I do know that was linked because of what I understand about cancer as a disease. So
yes, I know you are very knowledgeable about cancer. You've done an awful lot of research, and you take care of yourself and make sure that cancer is no longer a problem in your life. And maybe that's a conversation for another interview about the natural roots of healing cancer and the benefits of that in general well-being. But how did you feel that the cancer linked to your financial life, and what did you do to put yourself on a path that made you feel good, made you feel healthy?
The biggest lesson the second time with the second diagnosis of cancer, it was a much more serious, and I had a much more serious diagnosis, and I had to have surgery. And it did come to light. It kind of brought everything to the surface, where I was able to pinpoint at last what was going on inside me, and it was total fear, and especially at that time, because I had to pay out for the surgeries, and I didn't have much money, and it was just as if I had to totally let go of the control of me trying to how would I say, to control where the money would come from, just my mind alone being practical.
Yeah.
And I knew that fear for all those years had been inside me, and that's I just knew intuitively that was what my cancer, the cancer, I don't like to say my cancer, the cancer was, along with other things as well, that were emotional issues. And yeah, I found myself eventually where I just said, I can't do this anymore now. It's up to you. Whatever's out there, you take care of me. And I completely let go of absolutely everything.
And that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I think in this current climate, people are actually having to do that. You came to a stage in life where you did it voluntarily and
well, I didn't really do it voluntarily. I was kind of forced into a position where I was living, because it's quite funny when I look back on it, because at the time, which is it's nearly 2 years ago now. Is it 2 years ago? Yeah. I was living in this lovely little house in Antibes, and I'd been very, very happy. And it was as if I wasn't taking notice of the signs to get out. And my garden was overrun by ants. I couldn't sit out in it anymore. The mice moved in. Then a guy who rented a workshop at the side with my neighbour's garden, he moved in doing carrossery, which was the car mechanics and electric saw, metal saw going all day long. And it was kind of like that the universe just said, you're getting out of here whether you like it or not. So it wasn't really a choice.
Right.
I couldn't even work anymore then, because even to do hypnotherapy, I had all this noise going on around me. Yeah. So I had to completely surrender, hand my notice in, and just hope that something would show up for me.
Right. And it did. Did you particularly say hopefully something would show up for me, but did you do anything proactive? Were you proactive in any way? I mean, how did this something that would show up for me transpire? How did it show up?
Once I made the decision to leave the house and I handed my notice in, I then put my mind into gear and started selling everything off. And I knew that I would sell absolutely everything and just have in my possession my car and my dog.
Yeah.
And at this point, I had given all my trust over to whatever's out there, and I just believed that something would come to me and help me, support me, because there was nothing else I could do anyway. Yes. And that's what happened. And just before, I kind of thought of dog sitting and house sitting, but travelling around, because I'd always wanted to travel. But just before I left the house, my friend Christine was doing care work in England, and she said, come and live at my house, house sit for me, and I'll be coming and going. And I ended up staying at Christine's for a year. So I'm very, very grateful to Christine, and also came and stayed at your house a few times as well and looked after Jack. So I did that. I kind of manifested the dog sitting and the house sitting. So it did come locally, so I could still be around my children as well, see them. So yeah, that worked out for about a year. Yeah.
And then what happened? What has changed for you financially that has gone from being fear, your finances, up till when you just gave it all up was based on fear, because you've been divorced, you've been a single mum, you know, and you have to be totally responsible. It's up down to you to provide everything on your own. And yeah, I mean, it's stressful unless you've got a really good income. It is stressful, and you have to be quite creative. And I get the fear side of it. But what was it that, apart from letting go of the commitments, basically by giving up the house and just having a suitcase and the dog, you know, you are giving up those commitments, which is also giving up your stability and your security, which can be, for some people, can be really, really huge. And I think, especially at these times when people are suddenly without incomes, and suddenly probably there is a lot of fear based around you know, security and stability. But you got over that. You know, it must have moved on to something else. Did you obviously didn't move the fear from fear of security, fear of finances and fear of losing that security. But when you did give it all up, did you not have a fear for not knowing what was going to happen next? Did you have
I would create income?
Yeah, did that fear transfer itself into insecurity, fear of being insecure?
No, because I'd actually given that up as well, because I just trusted. You see, we've all been programmed to believe that we have to work really hard, mentally or physically, to earn money. And it's so false. And you'll only get it when you do let go of that control, thinking it can only happen this way or that way. Now, regrettably, I'd had a book on my bookshelf for years called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And over the years, since my marriage breakup, I had never been able to get ahead of the money, you know, with my overheads. And I wasn't a frivolous spender at all. And I read this book finally, and it was about accruing asset wealth. And it clicked straight away that I just kept getting into more and more debt by not being able to cover my overheads as much as I wanted to and have money left over. And I thought, well, how can I accrue asset wealth when it's so expensive? You need a lump sum of, you know, a big sum of money to be able to buy another property. Luckily, I did have a property in England, which is where I am now. I've moved back in. I was renting that out. But what else? You know, like antiques, fine arts, gold. And this is something else that I kind of put out there and said, what can I do to make myself secure, financially secure and safe? And I'll have to tell you this little story as well, put this in, because at this point, this is before I left my house and moved in with Christine. This is about a year or so before that. So this is after my surgeries and everything, and getting really scared. And I went to see Julia, the homeopath. I think you all know Julia Edgley. And I spoke to her about how I was feeling, and I knew it wouldn't happen, but I had this fear came out with talking to Julia that I could end up on the streets. But I knew I wouldn't, because my kids would never have that happen. But Julia gave me gold as a remedy.
Right.
And within probably a month, 2 months of me taking gold, physical gold as a remedy, a homeopathic remedy, I was introduced to this company called Carrot Bars, where you could save gold from small increments, starting from about €4 then. This is going back 3 years ago now. And that's what I started doing. I started saving gold every month, rather than saving in a bank where the interest rates are dwindling and you're not getting any returns on your money. Inflation, your paper money is decreasing in value. I started saving gold, and I've got my kids doing it too.
Yeah.
So that's what I started doing, and I can't. The feeling that you get when you know that you're putting something into place for yourself, security, financial security, because once you understand how powerful gold is, and you know that you can save that on a regular basis and add to it as and when you want, you're building some real security. It's the safest asset you can own on the planet. And I started doing that. And then obviously, as I mentioned before, that all I wanted to do was travel. Once I got to Christine's, and she does the gold business, she does carrot bars as well. So we were kind of bouncing ideas off each other. Last year, my earnings from carrot bars were just coming in thick and just so fast, effortlessly, without even trying.
Yeah.
And I won paid trips to Dubai, Cape Town, Las Vegas, Frankfurt, Amsterdam. Where else did we go? I think we went somewhere else. But it was just an amazing year last year. And that was proof for me that when you let go of how you think in your small little mind, where money can come in from, when you let go of that and be open for it coming in from absolutely anywhere.
Yes.
Just and it does. It
Yes.
comes in. And even now, the money is still coming in dribs and drabs. It's not as much now because people are worried, people have lost their jobs, they can't work, and that's all happening now. But when you trust that it will come in from somewhere, and you let go of that belief that it can only come in from here, there, or what you think, you open yourself up to something so huge.
It's about being more open-minded, isn't it? And it's about seeing what is around you rather than looking at what you always look at.
Yeah.
And just taking the opportunities and being curious.
Yeah. Being open to new opportunities, but also being open, being allowing, but even beyond just what you are looking at, that gratitude as well. Gratitude is such a big thing, being grateful for what you already have. And that, because of what I've been through as well, it did bring me back to being very, very grateful. It wasn't that I was an ungrateful person, but I suppose we all take things for granted too much. Yeah. And I was noticing more things that I was so very grateful for, because, when I woke up in the morning and found that there were 200 to 500 euros in my Carrot Bars account on my MasterCard, it was like, thank you. I was able to pay Christine something for letting me stay there. I was being able to pay for other things, food, and now I just don't worry about it. I expect it. It to just come into me now.
Yes.
And it happens.
Yeah.
It happens. Yeah. Even in this climate now, it's happening.
It's excellent. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, I'd say in this climate, it's a really good message to put out there, so that, people, especially people that are self-employed, but not necessarily so, because an awful lot of employed people have lost their jobs as well. The fear that they must be feeling, the loss of security, and suddenly being insecure, and maybe even the loss of worry about the loss of their housing, and it could be huge. But I think in this situation where you cannot do anything about it, I think this is a time to, as you say, be grateful for what you've got, and start being more open about what is around you, and start looking for alternatives, and maybe start investigating things that maybe you've always wanted to do.
Things are changing very, very fast, and I believe that what's happening now is an acceleration for the whole human race to let go of control. Stress is the biggest killer. Stress is the root of all disease, and I think the biggest stress for people is finances. It ruins relationships, it ruins your health, it destroys your health. And even though it feels really bad what's happening, it is forcing people to let go and trust.
Yes.
Because you can't do anything else right now.
Yes.
and you can't control it. And I think a lot of people will wake up to that they will never be the same again after this, and they will be more relaxed in themselves and realise that they can't control outcomes.
Yeah, and I think that's possibly one of the messages to put across from this interview is, to trust, to be positive, and to accept what is around you, and go with it, go with the flow, and don't get stressed.
It can be easier said than done, and
yeah,
then when you're thrown into it, you have no choice, and most of us have been thrown into it anyway. I think I'm dealing with this really well because I've already done it. So apart from the isolation, but I've already been there, so I'm not afraid. And I know that there's something out there. I'm not a religious person. I am spiritual. I believe that there's a force out there that obviously created us in the first place, and it will take care of us if we allow it to.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's letting go and allowing things and trusting is huge, both for changing your life financially, but also from a physical point of view, isn't it? It's letting go of that fear and that stress is going to be better for your health all around.
The repercussion on your health, because obviously, like Jackie, I have dealt with the cancer. I had the surgery, but I do not take any medication, and I won't, because I've done my research. I know that it's so important to live at that level of joy and happiness, contentment. I have an imaginary line where, if something happens and it brings me down below that imaginary line, I will check it out and do something, but I won't stay there. I get back up there. And I'll only do things that I enjoy doing. I can easily say no to people, which, assertiveness, discernment, you need to put those boundaries into place as well.
Yes.
I don't do anything that brings me down below that line.
Yeah.
And my life is just getting better and better, regardless of what circumstances are happening out there. I am at peace.
And that's so nice to hear, and I think there's a couple of things that you mentioned there, and one is it's okay to say no.
Yeah, definitely.
And being aware of your boundaries and your levels of at which point you have to say no. So I think you've given us a lot of information and good advice there. And there was one thing that you would say to people currently that they could gain from your story, your experiences, one bit of advice or one bit of information, what would that be?
Let go.
Let go.
Let go. Just trust and let go and trust. And do be open to new things, because technology is changing fast right now and there's opportunities out there. Just be open. A lot of people are very quick to voice an opinion based on ignorance, and if they will just say, it could be life-changing for them. It's
true, gaining information and educating yourself doesn't cost anything.
No,
and at the end of the day, in the end of the day, if you don't like what you're seeing, hearing or reading, you say no.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got that choice. And it just may be that it may be that what you're doing and reading and seeing just takes you onto something else that is right for you, but unless you take those opportunities, you'll never know.
Yeah, true.
Thank you so much, Karen, for talking. If people wanted to contact you, maybe just to have a chat and get to know you a bit better, how could they do that?
Email or on Facebook, Karen Leslie Rowe. At the moment I'm there to speak to anybody, just for a chat, if anybody needs some uplifting or with what's going on. Just contact me on KarenRowe88@gmail.com or Facebook, Karen Leslie Rowe.
Excellent. So good to talk to you, and maybe we can do another chat sometime about, your experiences of dealing with cancer naturally.
Stay happy, everybody. Stay positive.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.